Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Conservative Corner. I'm Elliot Margolis. I'm here with my co-host, Gail Burke. And today we're going to talk about a few items going on nationally that get both of us a little bit cranky. But before I do that, I have a couple of what we call foods for thought. If you cut police budgets, you get more crime in the streets. So if you intentionally cut police budgets, you wanted more crime in the streets. I would like you to witness Chicago, Minneapolis, and quite a few other big cities run by Democrats.
New York City.
If you cut back the supply of oil, gas, prices will go up. So if you intentionally cut back the supply of oil and gas, you wanted prices to go up. I refer, of course, to our friend and alleged President Biden, who has cut the price, the ability for us to get more oil unless we go to Venezuela and get dirty oil, or go to Russia, or go to Saudi Arabia to get oil and pay more money for it because of the environment. Well, my question would be, what about the environment in those countries? Aren't they part of the world? And don't we want the environment to be better for everybody? So, just food for thought. Gail?
Yes, I would like to bring up the subject that you may or may not have heard about the Maine lobstermen. We are all in the business of trying to protect our environment. That's a given. However, there are many groups, environmental groups, the Green New Deal and all that carry everything to extremes. Well, now they're concentrating on the Maine lobstermen in order to blame them for killing off the right whales. Now, right whales have been almost decimated over the years, but now they've started to come back. Well, apparently the environmentalists have decided that it's the Maine lobstermen that are the cause of killing off the right whales. And there's been this controversy has been going on for a couple of years. And the federal government has laid down many rules and regulations for the Maine lobstermen to follow, which they have for the most part. However, they're getting even worse now, and it's causing the Maine lobstermen to not be able to afford to fish anymore. They have restrictions on what kind of lines they must use, how often they can go out lobstering, and on and on and on. As if that isn't bad enough, now we have, the stores, the Whole Foods stores. Well, Whole Foods has decided that they're going to ban buying lobsters from Maine, from the Maine lobstermen, because supposedly they're killing off the right whales. There's no scientific evidence that that's true.
Oh, you need evidence?
Yeah, remember that?
I'm shocked that you need evidence, because they didn't need evidence to impeach Trump.
No.
So why do you need evidence?
I guess maybe because they're liberals. They don't need evidence.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Does that explain it all?
I just had to ask the question.
So I have watched an interview with somebody from the Maine Lobstermen Association that are very upset about this. And even though Whole Foods said they were going to do it, they don't call it a ban. They're calling it something very different, like they're putting a pause on buying Maine lobsters. Well, what happens is it's like anything. Once that gets out into the public, to the mainstream media, of course, you know what the headlines will say. Maine lobstermen are killing off right whales. So now the entire country and the world is aware that there's a possibility that the Maine lobstermen aren't doing the right thing and killing off the whales. Well, once that kind of propaganda gets started, you can protest all you want, but it still remains in the public eye. And it's ironic that this president, when he had a state dinner for the Premier of France, Macron, what did he bring in to the White House for a meal? 200 Maine lobsters. So it's okay for them to eat lobsters, even though Whole Foods is saying that they're killing off the right whales. Where's the justice? What about the Maine lobstermen and the whole industry up there?
Two things. Number one, do as I say, not as I do. That's the liberal philosophy. They got a flag. Do as I say, not as I do.
Well, they decimated.
But here's my other question. What about the left whales? I can't help it, Gail. You leave an opening, and I got to take it.
I think those are probably taken care of because they follow along with the crowd of lefties. They don't have to think. They just do whatever the left says. But remember, this is what has happened to the Gloucester fishing industry for years. All the rules and regulations kept putting pressure on the fishermen in Gloucester, and all the restrictions. Very few fishermen left in Gloucester.
I know. As you know, Gloucester's like my second home. Bruce Tarr, who is the state senator from Gloucester, has done a tremendous job. But quite honestly, I mean, you want to know why lobster is so expensive in the fishing stores or in a restaurant? It's because of the government.
Yeah.
It's absolutely because of the government.
And the fishermen couldn't afford to do everything that the government was mandating that they do.
Well, and not only that, but, you know, we might be paying $3, $4 a gallon for gas for our cars.
Oh, right.
But for boats,
for diesel,
it's a lot more expensive. So when you consider lobstermen have to go out and, you know, in their boats and use the fuel, and it's costing them 3 times as much as it used to, guess what happens to the price of the fish?
Yeah. And do you know that the fishermen have the most dangerous job in the world?
Oh, believe me, when I had a store in Gloucester, I lost a lot of customers who were fishermen.
Really?
And you remember the perfect storm.
Yeah.
I knew everybody. They were all customers of mine.
Wow.
Fishing is a very dangerous job. And as much as I hate to pay the price for a pound of fish now, because it's so expensive, number one, I eat a lot of fish, and number two, you want to support the fishermen.
That's right.
So it's really a tough issue. But the government is wrong again. The government does not necessarily need evidence. They just think about something, and when they think about it, oh, that's a good cause. People will support it. And, of course, the biggest problem we have in the United States right now is the mainstream media. When I talk to friends of mine who are liberals, and I bring up certain subjects or they bring up certain subjects and we have a discussion, things that I try to tell them they've never heard of. They didn't know it existed. There are still people that don't think that we have a problem at the border. It's hard to believe. But there are people that, well, you know what they say? They say, yeah, but we're catching an awful lot of fentanyl coming into the country. Yes, we are. But we're also not catching an awful lot of the fentanyl coming into the country, and we're losing 300 people a day. Why isn't that an issue? I guarantee you, if a Republican was in office, the Democrats would be hopping up and down about all the people that are dying from drug overdoses because of an open border and the Republicans are in charge. And yet, you know, a good example would be when Obama was president, we had all those cages. But nobody commented on the cages until Trump was in office, and then Trump had to say, but Obama made them. You know, the mainstream media is a real big problem. Now, let's go to another interesting topic. Biden's Jim Crow 2.0, okay? When Georgia changed their election policies, Biden was saying how the laws were politically dangerous, they were going to hurt the black community, the minority community. Well, if that's the case, 3,957,880 voters cast a ballot in the last election, which is higher than the total in 2018, which was historic. Does that sound like voter suppression to you? The percentage of registered voters casting ballots did dip slightly, but why did it dip slightly? Because 520,000 new people registered to vote. Does that sound like voter suppression to you? What the law really did do was it increased electoral integrity and voting options. So here's an example of, you know, the Democrats saying something that means absolutely nothing. And it's time that the Democrats just tried to be honest with us. You know, they complain, the Republicans, of being totalitarian and anti-Constitution. Let me ask you a question. Why is it that the Democrats want to deport Elon Musk? Doesn't Elon Musk have the right to say what he wants to say, or is the First Amendment only good if you say what the Democrats want to hear?
See, you're a little confused. You are a little confused.
Oh, am I confused?
Yeah,
oh, well,
because...
Please explain to me my confusion.
Okay, you have to understand that when Democrats say something, it's true. They don't have any facts to back up a lot of the things that they say, but that's okay, because they're woke. The Republicans, on the other hand, aren't woke. They think for themselves. They have a habit of not agreeing with everything that other Republicans are saying. They think. They use their heads and think. Democrats don't do that. They march in lockstep. So if a group of Republicans...
Sort of like Hitler's Germany,
yeah,
which the Democrats accused Trump of, is what they're doing. Is that what you're telling me?
That's what I'm telling you. And you have to know, you and I know, that when the Democrats accuse Republicans of doing whatever, that's when you know that that's what the Democrats are doing. And that's how you begin to understand what's going on here. For instance, we have a border czar. I think they called her that at the beginning. You know, the Vice President of the United States. She's never been to the border where all the problems are, which is to say most of the border, the southern border. But in September of this year, she did an interview with Chuck Todd on Meet the Press. You know Chuck Todd. She was asked by him whether the border is secure. And she said, of course the border is secure. There's no question that we have to do what the President and I have asked Congress to do. Pass a bill to create a pathway to citizenship. That's what she calls a broken system at the border. No pathway to citizenship. The border is secure, but we also have a broken immigration system. Over the last 4 years before we came in is when it happened, and it needs to be fixed.
It's funny you say that, Gail, because if I remember correctly, and I do, the immigration system has been flawed for about 30 years. And Congress has been talking about fixing it. But, here's the problem. The reason why Congress hasn't fixed it, when you make a decision, somebody's not going to like it.
That's right.
So if you don't make a decision and you blame the other party, then it's their fault that nothing's happened.
That's right.
So for 30 years, nothing has happened, and now it's Trump's fault.
Well, it's interesting because Chuck Todd is one of the liberal left media, and even he pushed back against her claim about the border being secure. Since Biden took office, the number of illegal immigrants who entered the U.S. are approaching 2 million people. 2 million people that are here illegally, which brings up the question, where are they going? They're going everywhere. They can't stop them, or they can, but they won't. They won't build the wall, continue building the wall that Trump built. And now, even though there's no problem, they're going to be sending air marshals to the border to help the Border Patrol. Well, if the border's secure, why do they need air marshals? And these air marshals aren't trained to be Border Patrol people.
Couple of things. Okay, number one, you're right that the Democrats stopped building the wall because walls don't work.
That's right.
Okay? That being said, when there was the alleged insurrection, and I say alleged because I don't believe it was one,
No.
but anyhow, what happened? Nancy Pelosi built a wall around the Capitol.
But she built it after the riot.
Yes, but did they have a problem afterwards? Why would you build a wall if it doesn't work? When the Supreme Court announced that they were getting rid of Roe v. Wade, they put a wall around the Supreme Court.
Yep.
Why do you put a wall around if it doesn't work? I mean, I think that's a fair question. If it doesn't work, why spend the money to build it?
Why does he have a wall around his home in Chicago?
Doesn't work.
Doesn't work, so why build it?
Why build it? I mean, you see the hypocrisy that we're talking about here? I mean, I don't care if somebody does something good for this country. I don't care whether you're a Democrat or Republican. I don't care if you're black or you're white. I don't care if you're male or female. You're doing something good for the country. Why can't a Democrat do something good and the Republicans say, gee, that was a pretty good idea, and vice versa? What happens if a Republican does something good? Why can't the Democrat say, gee, that was a good idea, I'm going to support it? I mean, we are so separated now, it almost seems like we need another revolution. And I'll tell you something, if we were to have another revolution, the Republicans would win because we got the guns.
Good point. Well, it's interesting because this past week, I believe it was, and I think your idea of a revolution may happen, but there's also a possibility of a third party because a leading Republican senator, Kristen Sinema, left the Democrat Party.
Yeah, you said.
Oh, did I say she? No,
yeah.
she was a Democrat, and she left the Democrat Party, and now she is an independent. So, because she didn't agree with a lot of things that the Democrat Party was doing, and that's fine. But now, what happens to the majority in the Senate? It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out.
Yeah, just to switch topics for a bit, because I think it was about a year ago that Congress was interviewing our new Supreme Court justice. And one question was asked of her, okay? And the question was, can you define what a woman is?
And she paused.
And then couldn't do it.
And then she couldn't.
She said, I can't do it. We have a Supreme Court justice that doesn't know the difference between a man and a woman.
Well, that's because she's not a biologist. She has nothing to do with that, so that's why she can't do it.
I mean, this
and she's
is the
supposed to be very smart.
Pete Buttigieg is our transportation secretary. He knows nothing about transportation, but he's gay. So my question is, don't we want people to work on this country and help this country because they're qualified to do a job instead of because they're gay or a woman or a man or a transgender? I want quality people. I don't care what they are. But when Joe Biden says, I'm going to have a black woman be our Supreme Court justice, as opposed to I'm going to have the best person that I know be a Supreme Court justice, and then he supports somebody who doesn't know the difference between a man and a woman? Give me a break.
Well, his newest hire in his administration is a non-binary, fluid gender person. And I'm looking at this person who is wearing a dress, has a beard or a mustache, telling us that he's non-binary. Well, okay, so one day you'd think you're a woman, and then the next day you can be a man? And this is a new hire. He lasted about a week. And then he was accused, and they had video of him stealing a woman's luggage in an airport. And this is the second time he's done it. And that's why they fired him.
Senator Warnock from Georgia was a wife abuser. If a Republican was a wife abuser, watch out. But a Democrat is okay. Yeah. It's unbelievable.
I know.
Unbelievable.
I know.
So now we have another interesting thing. We traded off with Russia our WNBA star playing basketball.
She was accused of having drugs.
She was guilty, but I mean a real minor thing. First of all, she had prescription for using that particular drug. She was arrested. She was guilty of having something she shouldn't have had in Russia. Okay, but we gave the Russians their Victor Bout, who was an arms dealer, what they call him, merchant of death.
Yes, something like that.
We have a Democratic congresswoman who says, a Representative Sheila Jackson Lee of Texas, Democrat, the way this was written, one of the resident lunatics in the Democratic Party, told MSNBC host Joy Reid last week that even though the weapons he trafficked might have been used to kill Americans, Bout has not killed Americans.
And she knows this how?
Well, but not only that, but he's still responsible for killing Americans. And we gave him back to the Russians for a basketball player. What about our Marine, who's still there? Why not have him in that deal? We have a Marine who has protected our country, fought for our country, and he's still in Russia in prison, but we let a basketball star, who, by the way, is black woman lesbian.
Yeah. Well,
as opposed to a Marine
who's been there for 4 years,
yeah,
captive for 4 years.
This is the priorities of the Democratic Party. I'm not saying that she shouldn't have been let go. I'm not saying that at all. All I'm saying is, although I will say she did kneel for the national anthem, so she's not a big fan of the United States to begin with, but what about our Marine? Why is he still in Russia? I mean, it's unbelievable.
Well, we have a president and an administration that has no idea of how to negotiate anything. And that we've seen this over and over again, whether it be negotiating to buy their oil, or whether it's to get prisoners free from a totalitarian state. They don't know how to do it. I cringe every time he gets on a plane and is going someplace, whether it be to France or wherever he goes, because he doesn't understand foreign policy. Don't forget, this is a man who was never really in charge of anything. He was a senator for most of his career, where he was always on the wrong side of every policy. Then he became vice president. Well, he wasn't in charge, except where his son Hunter was concerned when he was dealing with Burisma.
With the Chinese.
Yeah.
And making $30 million.
Yeah. But now as president, he's got decisions to be made. Who's making the decisions? He doesn't seem to know right from left, up from down. He doesn't. And it's sad to watch him because he's a confused man with definite cognitive problems. And this is the guy that has his finger on the button of nuclear. Does that not scare people? It scares me. He's messed up the baby food. Formula is still difficult to get for parents who have babies. Look at the price of food in the grocery stores. Look at the price of gas is going up. And we've just started the winter. And the price of heating oil, the price of natural gas to heat your homes.
Well, I know that I prepay for my oil. This year was $1,000 more than last year for the same number of gallons. $1,000 more.
And a lot of people don't have the money. They have to make choices between heating their homes or not buying as much food as they used to. Is that pathetic?
I mean, I do the food shopping in my house, and ouch, two of us. I mean, ouch.
Ouch is right.
It's unbelievable. And, Joe Biden, he doesn't do his food shopping. He doesn't care how much the lobsters cost. The average American, is going to be eating a lot more pasta.
That's for sure.
And a lot more junk food. It's
and what
incredible.
happens to all these illegals that are coming across the border? Who's paying to feed them?
Now, wait a minute. Well, now you've gone a little bit too far. Okay, first of all...
I usually do.
First of all, it's okay for us to increase our deficit to help illegals, feed them, give them phones, give them shelter, let them have nice hotel rooms, let them have room service. That's okay. And increasing our deficit, no problem whatsoever, because the Democrats are doing it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know what you're talking about, because we can afford to pay for the illegals. Now, somebody said to me, people are not illegal. So there's no such thing as illegal people. Okay, I'll give you that. People are not illegal. However, what they have done is illegal. Okay? They've come across the border illegally. Now, if you say that that's not a crime, tell me something. And I ask this of Seth Moulton or any person in public office, our illustrious new governor that's coming in who's a lawyer. Here's my question. If you don't obey the laws of the country, why should I?
Well, thank you for that, Elliot. And our time is just about up, but I want to thank you all for watching. We've enjoyed bringing you this show, and we hope you'll continue to watch, because you're not going to find information like this from the mainstream media or the Boston Globe or the New York Times. It just is suppressed. We hope in the future that will change. Maybe it will, maybe it won't, because there's nothing like an informed citizenry, and that is what is surely lacking in our country today. So thank you again for watching, and we will see you next time.